Hi, kids. Next lesson is congruent triangles, okay? Your note should look like the screen here. Hopefully I've given those to you. Um, all right, let's see what we have in store today. So, after today, you're going to be able to tell if two triangles are congruent. And remember, congruent means that they are the same. So, they need to be identical at everything about them. And then you're going to use corresponding parts of congruent triangles to solve for variables. Remember corresponding, when we had corresponding angles, they were in matching spots, so that's the same thing with matching parts. They have to be in the same spots of your triangles. Okay, so let's see here what's going on. So it says triangles with the same shape and size are congruent. This means that all corresponding parts, sides, and angles are the same. Again, so these triangles are identical. Everything about them is the exact same. They're the exact same shape and the same size. So when we have congruent triangles, we can write congruency statements. So it says when triangles are congruent, we can write a congruency statement. Well, that's just dandy. So let's look here a bit. So it says triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So now let's just break this apart a bit. So angle A has one archy mark. That's why it matches angle D, one archy mark, right? You guys see how they had one archy mark apiece? So that's why A is in the first spot and it has to match D. Okay, then it says B, which has two archy marks. So now let's hope E has two. Yep, again, these guys match because they're the exact same. So that's why they're in matching spots. And then just to check again for C, C has three archy marks, as does F, 1, 2, 3. So that's why C and F are in corresponding positions in that congruency statement. And then you can do the same thing with the side. So like side AB has one tick mark, so DE should also have one tick mark, and it does. So again, like this is like your little key. It's like your little map. It tells you what goes with what between the sides and angles. A valid congruency statement must match all corresponding angles and sides. So for instance, I couldn't say triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. Well, why? Well, because look, so let's see, A has one archy mark and so does D. Now I went to C, it has three, but E only has two. So these don't match, so that would be not good, right? So this would be not valid. They have to be in the right order. Okay, so now there's more about this corresponding parts business. We have this shortcut, and this will come into play kind of later on in the year, but we talk about it now a bit. CPCTC stands for corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So why is that important to us? It's important because if we know two triangles are congruent, then we know that every pair of corresponding parts are also congruent. So this will be helpful when we are solving for like missing variables and things. So again, CPCTC stands for corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. This isn't in your notes, but we're just kind of talking about some things. It says, what can we conclude about angles A and angle D? What can we conclude about these two guys? Well, if we look here, we could find the missing measure of angle A from last lesson. We can subtract 117 and 36 from 180 and get 27. And then we can do the same thing here to find D, but is it really necessary to go through that work again? Not really, just because look, folks, if angle E and B are the same and C and F, by default, don't we know that A and D have to be the same? I mean, we verified it because we got 27 for both, but we didn't really need to. So if you see that you have two angles that are congruent in two different triangles, by the third angle theorem, we know by default that the third angle of those triangles are congruent. So again, If two angles of one triangle are congruent, meaning they're the same measure, to two angles of a second triangle, then the third angle of those triangles are also congruent. You guys kind of sick of me talking at you because I feel like we haven't done any math yet, and I'm sorry. Just kind of a lot of like theorems. But here we go. We finally get some actual problems that we can do. So it says, list all congruent angles and sides given the congruency statement. So you could draw yourself a picture if that helps you, but you really don't need to because look, guys, this is our key. We can just follow the letters here. So let's start with our angle. So it says, what are your congruent angles? Well, angle J is congruent. Now just match J is in the first spot. What's in the first spot? P. That's one. Now if I keep going, angle K is congruent to angle Q. They're in the middle spots. And our last one, angle L, is congruent to angle R. So if you're confused how I did that, remember I just matched. So the first one went with the first one, the middle, the last, the last. If you don't like doing it that way, draw yourself a quick triangle, label it, and this can help you if you go in the right order. But I would just use this. It makes the most sense to me. So now if we check our sides, I'm going to pick the first two letters. So JK is congruent. Now what are my first two letters over here? PQ. And now I'm going to move over one space. KL is congruent to QR. And then our last one would be LJ is congruent to RP. And then it says write another valid congruency statement. So basically jumble up the first set of letters and then match it accordingly. So let's say triangle KJL is congruent. Now we got to match. So what matches K? Well, K matches Q. What matches J? That's P. And L goes with R. And there we go. Okay. What is next on our list? It says given triangle GHJ is congruent to triangle XYZ, find each measure. That sounds easy enough. Okay, so it says GJ equals what? Well, what does GJ match? Well, you can either look up here, GJ matches XZ, or I guess this one's kind of intuitive. You could look at the picture as well, but we would know that it's 18. XY, first two letters matches GH, which they tell us is 27. And then ZY matches HJ. Well, we don't have anything written here, but remember those tick marks mean that segments are congruent. So if this is 27, so is this guy. So now we know that this is 27 feet. Now we're looking for some missing angles here. Angle H, my middle letter, matches Y, which we know is 38 degrees. And now we're looking for these missing two. Well, we haven't talked quite about this yet. Our book kind of mixes things up on me, so when I make notes, sometimes talk about things and sometimes you don't, but we're a smart group, so it's okay. This is actually called an isosceles triangle. And your base angles are congruent because they're across from equal sides. So we'll learn about this at the end of the chapter, but it's just a little preview, I suppose. So let's see what's left over of our 180 if we take 38 away. So if I take 180 and subtract 38, we get 142, right? So now I have to split that 142 evenly between those two spots. So they're both 71, which means these are both 71. Okay, and then our last problem for today, it says triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. AB equals 8, BC equals 19, AC equals 14, and EF equals 4x minus 1, and DE equals y minus 6. Find the values of x and y. Holy cow. So this would be a time when I would draw a picture because there's just a lot going on in this set of instructions. So give yourself a decent picture here And just make sure you label your triangle in the same order. So I went A, B, C. So now I'll make sure I follow D, E, F. And now I'm going to label AB equals 8, BC equals 19, AC equals 14. EF is 4x minus 1, and DE equals y minus 6. Okay, for me, this is a lot better visually understood than just reading it off, but do you, whatever works for you, works for you. Let's start with X. So if we notice EF is congruent to BC again, you could either look on your triangles you just drew or EF as the last two letters, and so are BC. So we know that these two things are equal, and now I can just substitute in. If BC equals 19, what does it match over here? 4x minus 1. And now we solve. Add your 1 over, we get 20 equals 4x. Divide by 4, we get 5 is equal to x. Not so bad. Now for y, I have DE. So your first two letters would have to match AB, our first two letters. So again, if this helps you, write this out. We know that AB is 8. DE is y minus 6. Add your 6 over, and we get 14 equals y. Okay. We will practice some more when I see you in class. Have a super duper rest of your day, and we'll see you soon, kids. Adios.